Hi, thanks for joining me. So today I want to talk about this, which is, as regular viewers will know, Yes, one of my all-time favourite bands, have been ever since I got into music in my sort of early teens, and Close to the Edge is undoubtedly one of their, if not their high point, certainly one of. I did do a video on the sort of top 10 Yes albums. I'll leave a link to that up here. I don't think Close to the Edge came in at number one in that list, but these lists do ebb and flow, and Close to the Edge is undoubtedly one of the, the greatest prog records, one of the greatest records ever made, in my opinion. It's absolutely beautiful. It's stunningly beautiful music, very sort of deep and emotive, and anyone who hasn't heard it, I'd urge you to give it a listen. And basically, just to really roughly sort of describe the album, there's 3 tracks. So side 1, the whole album, is called Close to the Edge. It's an absolute prog epic. And side 2, you've got And You and I, which again is a prog epic and just staggeringly beautiful. The sort of the light and shade, the sort of orchestral majesty of this album is incredible. And then finally, track 2 of side 2, Siberian Catru. It's another prog epic, and for years and years and years, that was kind of the song that they opened their gigs with. So, this album is just absolute solid gold. Okay. Now, what is this about? What do you get? Well, it's one of these dare I say cash grabs. It's the definitive edition. I think that's pretty much, whether it's called the definitive edition or the super deluxe edition, you'll see it marketed in various ways. But it came out recently, and being a Yes fanatic and a Close to the Edge fanatic, part of the reason I bought it was because there was 2 options to purchase. The first was just to get this, which was £100, and I'll show you what you get in this. It's a heck of a lot. And then was also to get it with this, which I did go for, which was £150. So you're paying £50 for a print here. But it is a hand-signed by Roger Dean, the artist, print. And, as a teenager, I was massively moved and influenced by, this prog music, primarily Yes and Genesis, and this kind of artwork, to have a hand-signed Roger Dean print for 50 quid, at my time and space in life, I just figured that was something I wanted to do. So it was probably that tipped me over the edge to buying this. Anyway, so, whether you think it's worth it or not, £50 for a hand-signed print of Close to the Edge, I chose to do it. That's all there is to it. Now, but the real deal, £100 for this. What's it like? What do you get? Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is run through just very briefly the whole thing and what you get. If I open it up like this, so here you can see the shrink. So that's the hype sticker, and as you see, it tells you it is the definitive version. So it must be, okay? Who would be arguing with that? So you've got, first of all, in here, I'll just let this, hang on. I will say this cover is absolutely beautiful. It's a really nice, solid, hardback book kind of cover. There's the LP. It's a remaster, it's not a remix, so it's the original mix of the album, remastered, i.e. cut by Bernie Grumman. I strongly suspect from a digital copy of the master, and I'll talk about how these, how the sound qualities of all these things in a while later on in this video. But just to sort of run through what you get. So you get a vinyl LP of Close to the Edge. You also get a really lovely book, okay? And I will just very quickly, let me just put this away, I will very quickly show you this. So just so you know, of the original album, that's the inner gatefold sleeve, and on the original album, that's the inner sleeve, okay, with the lyrics on. And in here, we get a nice sort of essay. Some nice pictures. And this is, you know, for me, this is the absolute classic lineup of Yes. So we've got John Anderson on vocal, Chris Squire on bass. These are the two kind of founder members. Bill Bruford on drums, who kind of, you know, he was their original drummer, but I'm not entirely certain I think Squire and Anderson picked Bruford, if you see what I mean. And then Steve Howe is the second guitarist, replacing Peter Banks. And Rick Wakeman is the second keyboard player, replacing Tony Kaye. And this guy here is Eddie Offord, who's a bit of a dude and sort of, I think, mixed and produced their first few albums and you know, really deserves credit. Okay, what else do we get here? Okay, as I said, there's the lyrics, and there's the complete contents, again with some quite nice pictures. Interestingly, you've got Alan White here, and the only place Alan White appears on this album is on some live stuff, which I'll go on to in a minute. And again, just credits and, you know, a few more peaks. Okay, so it's a nice book. I will give it that. Now, really, as I say, you've got there's a vinyl LP in here. There's a CD in here, which is CD1 they call that, and that is the same as the vinyl. It's the original album, just remastered by Bernie Grumman. We've got disc 2, Stephen Wilson remixes with and without vocals, okay. Disc 3, kind of rarities, alternate takes, that kind of stuff. And then discs 4 and 5 is Live at the Rainbow on the 16th of December 1972. And I'll get on to discuss those in greater length in a while. And then this disc here is a Blu-ray with pretty much, not the live stuff, but pretty much this sort of stuff over again, just in higher res than 1644.1, and also in sort of Dolby Atmos 7.1, Dolby Digital 5.1, or DTS. In fact, it is, I think, 5.1. And all these kind of, you know, high res formats you can play on your home cinema system. So, you know, I've never heard a home cinema system that matches a high-end hi-fi system. So, quite what the point of those are, you know, that baffles me slightly. But people, they keep making them, and you know, what people play them on, I don't know. Anyway, that's kind of what you get, and you can see on the back here it lists it all in greater detail. So, I think what we'll do first of all is we'll talk about sort of disc 1, which is the album, Close to the Edge, and also, of course, the vinyl LP in here. And I will just show you that. It slips in very nice. This cover really is gorgeous. There's no other way to describe it. You know, it's a nicely pressed piece of vinyl. I think it's pressed at Optimal, and it is cut by Bernie Grumman. So I'll just put that back in there. Okay, so let's refer to this for starters. So we're going to talk about this LP, the CD version in here as well, and what I'm going to compare them to, this, I think this is 1982 MOFI, all analog MOFI, mastered by Stan Ricker. That's one reference. And my other reference is the 1972 original, UK original, okay? Now, I'll just show you this a little bit more because I'm sure people are mostly interested in originals. You can see there, I don't know if you can see this in the light, but there's a leather texture to this cover, both on the outside there and also on the inside. So it's, you know, it's kind of nice. And the inner sleeve, as I mentioned earlier on, the inner sleeve has got the lyrics on it. And just to show you an original LP, there we go. What's quite nice is you've got the Roger Dean Yes logo here, look. And this is an original pressing, I'm pretty sure. K50012A1. Okay. I've just got this in sort of a rice paper sleeve in here, just to keep it nice. Right, so how do they sound? I'm just going to very quickly kind of cover the differences between the original and the MOFI. So the MOFI it's sort of rounder and softer. I mean, you could say that there are more layers. It's slightly more separated in that respect. But it is all kind of slightly sort of rounded and filled out and softened. And if you know close to the edge, I mean, it starts off with sort of like a mountain stream kind of effect. You know, imagine you're in a forest on the side of a mountain and you've got the sort of the water tumbling down over the rocks and just massive amount of bird song going on. And there is like a very distant organ note sort of overlaying that, and then it just sort of it just goes completely manic. It's frenetic and manic and mad, and the contrasts are just something else. And it's all made a little bit kind of comfortable, pipe and slippersy, sort of, you sat there on your sofa on this. Whereas on the original, it's you know, when you're in the mountains, it's clear air, fresh, sort of, you know, you really feel the nature. And then when it gets frenetic and just launches into it, I mean, the guitars do screech and wail, and the bass is just thundering away in the background, and Bruford's drums are just absolutely kind of, you know, all over the place, but, you know, all over the place in an appropriate way. It's phenomenal. Okay, so between these two, just to sort of set the scene, the original is without a doubt my preferred version over the MOFI. So how does this fit in? Well, it's not quite as sort of comfortable and rounded as the MOFI, so some people might actually prefer it to that. But at the same time, it's a little bit kind of screechy. I think basically it's a sign of the fact that it's as I strongly suspect, I don't know this for definite, taken from a digital copy of the master. You know, even before you even get to the music, when you've got these birds at the start, it's like the last one just sort of sounds like sort of fingernails down a blackboard. It's not nice. And whereas Howe's guitar is really kind of played sort of frenetically and with sort of with angst and acidic kind of energy, it's grating and it's not that nice. Okay, so when I say it's not that nice, I think it's a perfectly acceptable modern reissue kind of quality, but it isn't a patch on the original. Because the MOFI is sort of rounded and you know, a bit sort of smoothed off, I can imagine someone might prefer this to the MOFI. It's possible. Depends where your sort of sensibilities are, but the original absolutely walks it. I mean, by a large percentage, it really is. Between the CD and the vinyl in this, it's quite a close call. I get the impression both are sort of mastered by Bernie from whatever he was supplied, which is, I'm sure, a digital copy of the master tape. And so they're very, very similar, and maybe down to the optimal pressing. Again, I could imagine that someone might prefer the CD over the vinyl within this set. It's possible. You'll see as this review unfurls that I'm struggling to kind of wonder who this is really aimed at and whether they would be, whether they do better buying something else. But anyway, so the original album, it's okay, basically, but it absolutely isn't anywhere close to the original pressing. So if you this is 100 quid. Now, an original pressing is kind of quite hard to find in decent condition, but for £100, I think you'd get one, okay? So if you really, really, really want the best, let me remind us, the definitive version, this isn't it, this is, okay? But let's have a look at what else you get on there. Now we get to disc 2, CD2. Just remind you, we're now onto this side here, so it's this one here. And basically you've got the whole album remixed by Steven Wilson, and then you've got the whole album instrumentally remixed by Steven Wilson. And I'll talk about the normal version with vocals. So let's talk about a different track. We talked about Close to the Edge with the original albums. Let's talk about And You and I now. Now, you've got this sort of like really open, echoey kind of, okay, and then, I think that's probably Steve Howe. I don't know who it is. You've got someone goes, okay, and then, bing, bong, sort of guitars, strums and picks, and it's just so spacious, and you can feel the resonance and the ambience of the space. And there's this sort of wonderfully kind of picked guitars and picked and strummed guitars. It's just, it's utterly kind of jaw-droppingly, you're sat there listening to it like, jaw hanging open. Your heartbeat sort of waiting for every next note kind of intensity. It's beautiful. And also, from hard left to hard right, the sound stage is wide open and immediate, and it's just, there's an intensity and a, kind of tactile quality to the music on the normal. And then you put on this, you listen to the Steven Wilson remix. And for the first thing is it just seems sort of flatter, but also this wide sort of picked guitars and it's all just sort of dragged into the centre. But even before that, just from the word go, from the moment the track starts almost, I was like, oh my God, what's this? There's something really weird going on phase-wise. It's like one ear's pushing and the other ear's pulling. It's just, I don't like that. And Anderson's vocals really recessed and thrown towards the back. And it just sounds to me like it's out of phase. It sounds bloody awful. Absolutely awful. And what more do I need to say? If 30 seconds into the first, few notes of the songs, you're just like, oh God, I can't listen to this, then, I don't think that's a successful remix, Steven Wilson. I'm sorry, mate. It's horrible, frankly. I don't know whether the CD's been mastered incorrectly, but, he's done it. And it's, you might, it's the sort of thing you'd think, has someone been in and messed around on my system, but it isn't, because all the rest of it plays absolutely fine, But the disc 2, the Steven Wilson stuff, it's horrible, okay? Absolutely horrible. So that was an easy one. Disc 3, we've got the Rarities and the like. Now, I'm not particularly bothered about single versions of, a little snippet out of a great big epic, just sort of, alternate rough mixes and all that stuff. Doesn't particularly bother me. But, you've got two versions of the song America here, the Paul Simon song. One here, it says the single version. Now, I didn't even know it was released as a single. I don't think it was, to be honest. And then you've got what they call the dry mix. Now, I first heard America, the Yes version of America, on the 1975 compilation, Yesterdays. Some people hate it. I absolutely love it. It's you know, the familiar Simon and Garfunkel song, you know, fully progged up, and it is just, I love it, absolutely love it. It's on fire, and it's about 10 minutes or so long. The version on this, well, I didn't compare, because this is only on CD here, only on CD. I compared this to the CD version from Yesterday's, and it's just incomparable. I massively prefer the version of America on this. Okay, you can pick this record up for almost, you know, for a few quid. So if you don't know the song, go and get this. It's so much better than listening to it in any of these versions, right? So, you know, that's we're sort of, you know, we're whipping through this. That's disc 3, which is not, you know, the bits of interest aren't really that good. Then you've got disc 4 and disc 5. Live at the Rainbow, London, England, the 16th of December, 1972. Now, all Yes fans, I'm sure, will be aware of Yes songs. This is my copy of Yes songs, and as you can see, it's, you know, well and truly scuffed and beaten up, but, you know, just there's Alan White's signature there, Chris Squire's signature there, Steve Howe's, and John Anderson's. I'm pretty sure I've got one of them signed it somewhere. Yeah, Chris Squire signed it in there as well, look. But, you know, Yes songs. For those who don't know, just, you know, what a beautiful, amazing kind of thing this is. It's a triple live album, and this is recorded on the 1972 Close to the Edge tour. So, yeah, this was the most, you know, this Live at the Rainbow was the thing of biggest interest to me, maybe, bar the, you know, the signed Roger Dean poster. But if you go through the track listing of Yes songs, and you go through the track listing on here, there's a few things that are missing. So we don't get Perpetual Change, which, interestingly enough, Bill Bruford's playing on this. We don't get Long Distance Runaround, which Bruford plays on this. We don't get The Fish, which is the sort of Chris Squire's solo. You know, it's a pretty majestic thing. We don't get Mood for a Day, which is Steve Howe's solo piece. I think other than that, it's pretty much the same. But again, what's particularly interesting about this 16th of December 72 gig is that there is a Yes Songs DVD, and that Yes Songs DVD is recorded on the 16th of the 12th. 1972 at the Rainbow Theatre. So this is basically the soundtrack to the DVD, with a couple of extra tracks. Okay, you've got Heart of the Sunrise, Yours Is No Disgrace, and Starship Trooper here, which aren't on the DVD, which is also available as a Blu-ray, by the way. You know, obviously, it's for a Yes fan, it's a sort of an essential purchase. Now, you know, because I'm a complete Yes fanboy, I was sort of keen to get that, and so I bought this pretty much for that. But when I ordered this, I can't remember how long ago it was announced, but as soon as it was announced, I looked at the track listing. It really was this Rainbow concert that made me think, yeah, brilliant, I'm going to get it. Excuse me, there's my cat, Toby. Hey, Tobes. You know, so I saw this was announced, I saw the track listing, I saw that there was this Rainbow concert, and bought it, or pre-ordered it. Subsequently, it was announced, I'm not sure in the US, because the US and the UK record store day lists are different, but in the UK record store day list is a vinyl copy of the Rainbow Theatre concert of the 16th of December 1972. Now, if I'd known that at the time of this, would I have bothered buying this? I don't know. It's a tricky one. I kind of like to have things I really like on vinyl and on, you know, a digital medium. It's a hard call, but the fact of the matter is I didn't know when this was announced that that concert was going to be subsequently announced on vinyl. And of course, it is already available on video. So, yeah, you know, you can make your own decisions up on that, whether you think that was, it would be worth buying, okay? And then the Blu-ray, now, I'm not a home cinema type person at all. I've got a Blu-ray playing system connected to my computer. I've got a Blu-ray playing system in the car. In the car, which is a multi-channel Blu-ray playing system, it won't play this disc. And I managed to play it on my, you know, sort of computer system, if you like, you know, through the hi-fi. And really all that did was confirm that the best version of this, to my ears, was the original audio remastered, the Bernie Grundman cut, so to speak. And the worst was the Stephen Wilson. And then there's multi-channel things which I'm just completely not really interested in. So, you know, that's the Blu-ray, in my book, quite pointless. So, you know, that's it really. So what we got? We've got an absolutely beautiful cover with a quite nice book. We've got an okay vinyl reissue, but not great, you know, just okay, but it is okay. And then we've got an okay CD version of that same thing. We've got an utterly bloody appalling Stephen Wilson remix, which, you know, I just do not know what on earth he's thinking of there. You've got a disc of sort of CD Rarities, which, you know, might be of interest to some, but like, as I said, you know, you can just go out and buy a copy of this for probably about a tenner or something, and it's got a much better version of America on it. And the other stuff, you know, well, you've got Stephen Wilson mixes of Siberian Cat of True, Stephen Wilson mixes or Stephen Wilson edits of various things. Just no, you know, and a couple of sort of demos. And then you've got the live stuff, which is, you know, it's good. It sounds good. It was a great concert. But, you know, if you've already got Yes songs, I'd say you don't really need it. And if you haven't already got it, okay, let's assuming you haven't already got this, right? If you haven't already got that, I'd say go out, buy a copy of this so you can listen to America, okay? Get a decent early copy, if not an original, because it sounds phenomenal, okay? And go and find yourself a copy of Yes songs, or arguably better still, or get the Yes songs DVD or Blu-ray, which has actually got that same concert, you know, with the video too, which, you know, for live stuff, I think having a video is super cool. So, you know, on balance, would I recommend this? On balance, no, I wouldn't. Not unless you're a complete lunatic Yes completist like I am, and then you'll be just sat there with, you know, something taking up a good centimetre of shelf space that you probably never take out and play again. Although it has to be said, without it, I couldn't have bought this. So, on that note, I'll say thanks for watching, and I'll see you all again soon. Bye now. Bye.